Okay, I see we have our agenda being displayed. So I guess I can begin by saying hello to everyone. So glad that you could all join us for this presentation on bringing a climate emergency resolution to the Tiburon Town Council. So I'm Pat Carloni. I'm co-chair of Marin Interfaith Climate Action, or MICA, a project of the Marin Interfaith Council. And MICA is supporting the need for this climate emergency resolution for the town of Tiburon and encouraging the faith communities of Tiburon and Belvedere to join this support. So tonight, we hope to address your questions about why declare an emergency about climate. What is a climate emergency resolution for Tiburon? And finally, how can the faith communities support this effort? We expect this event tonight to take about 45 minutes, consisting of about 20 to 25 minutes of presentation, and then leaving the rest of the time for any questions you may have. So let's begin. Why are we asking you, our faith communities, to be involved? There is no more qualified person to speak to that question than Reverend Canon Sally Bingham, an Episcopal priest who serves at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. As a lifelong Episcopalian who grew up finding God in nature, she was one of the very first people to recognize that climate change is not only an environmental issue, but also a moral one. She founded and led the Regeneration Project and its IPL, or Interfaith Power and Light campaign, for 25 years, which is one of the first and now the largest religious group focused on climate change. IPL is a national network with programs in 40 states and 22,000 congregations. Sally serves on the National Advisory Board of the Union of Concerned Scientists, and after 30 years, recently retired from the National Board of the Environmental Defense Fund, which he often credits with educating her on the severity of changing climate. So now, here is Reverend Sally Bingham.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with us. I retired 2 years ago from running the nonprofit that Pat just described. We were focused on a religious response to climate change. The Interfaith Power and Light campaign is still going on, however, very strong all over the US. From what I understand, having looked at the California Interfaith Power and Light website, the three congregations that are represented tonight, Westminster Presbyterian, Kol Shafar, and the Community Congregational Church, all in Tiburon, are also all members of the California Interfaith Power and Light program. And I don't know how much you as parishioners or congregational attendees know about the CIPL program. My role tonight is not to talk about CIPL, because you can go to the website and find out all the resources that are offered there. And but what I do want to do tonight is, it's almost like a mini sermon, is to convince you that this is a moral issue, and that if we as people of faith who say we love God and love our neighbors don't get involved in this, how can we expect other people to do it? The IPL program was very successful and still is, and our success can be attributed to the fact that all major religions have a stewardship mandate. People just haven't, in some congregations, emphasized that message until quite recently. God called us to be the gardeners of creation. God put Adam in the garden to till it and to keep it. It says so in Genesis. But we have not been very good gardeners. And another important point for Christians is that Jesus said, "What you do to the least of us, you do to me." And I think we all know that it's the poorer people, communities, and countries that suffer the most from the warming climate. And they don't have the resources and are not equipped to protect themselves, can't afford to switch to renewable energy or build barricades to stop the sea rise from approaching their homes and coastal areas. We need to help them do that, but that's another subject for another conversation. This evening, we're focused on gathering some voices from the faith community to show up at the Tiburon Town Hall meeting and have these voices speak from the faith community with the moral message that comes from religion. This is a social justice issue too. There are whole coastlines around the world that are sliding into the sea, and many people have become environmental refugees. Now I have to see this. Now you might say to yourself, well, what does this have to do with us in Tiburon? Well, it matters because our behaviors, all of our behaviors, everybody's behavior all over the world, everything matters. Whether it's the coffee you drink, the clothes you wear, the energy you use, the car you drive, all of these things use fossil fuels. And as you know, it's the burning of fossil fuels that produces the heat trapping gases, causing the climate and the oceans to warm. In Tiburon, many people can help solve the climate problem by not using fossil fuels. Not entirely, of course, but we certainly can contribute to solutions rather than the problem. Tiburon residents can afford solar on their roofs. We can drive electric cars. We can use electrical appliances rather than gas. And while you may not see less pollution in the air here in Marin, because it's already pretty clean, it will be cleaner in other areas around the world. Pollution doesn't stay in one place. It blows away from where it's created. So in other words, your gas-guzzling car pollutes your neighbor's air. And I always say that we, people of faith, called to love God and love our neighbors, are the people who should be leading this movement. This is a moral issue, and it's the responsibility of people of faith to take it seriously and look for ways to help our neighbors. And I'm going to come on again at the end of the evening where I can answer some questions, but right now I'm going to turn the agenda back over to Pat to introduce the other speakers.
All right, thank you, Sally. And while you've been speaking, I noticed that we have Sister Dolores McGuire here from St. Hilary, and I think I see some members also from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Belvedere. So I think we really have a full representation of all the congregations in Tiburon, Belvedere, and I think they're all members of CIPL, so it's great to have you all here tonight. And following up with Sally and I, I'd like to present the particulars of the climate emergency resolution and the why and the how we are bringing it to the Tiburon Town Council. And so to do that, I introduce to you Pat Goss and Santa Thomas, two Tiburon residents who were as well as David Miller, who along Pat and Sana and also Sally are all graduates of Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corps. So Pat holds a doctorate in communication from NYU, taught public speaking and debate at UCLA, has worked many years in the corporate world, and as for her local notoriety in Tiburon, in 2012, she was known as Commodore of the Corinthian Yacht Club. So David, a resident of Larkspur, is an engineer who worked for decades in renewable electric power generation. Now retired, he, along with his wife, Robin, they founded and lead the, I've got to try to get this in one breath now, the Marin Sonoma Electric Vehicle and Building Electrification Squads, working on public school reform, youth development. Whoops, that really took me off my reading here. That was quite a mouthful. They're helping that organization that they founded are helping local communities and jurisdictions transition to EVs and all electric buildings. Now, Sana has a master's degree in public administration and a doctorate in education from Harvard, and has spent her entire year in the nonprofit world working on public school reform, youth development, and community action. So Pat and Sana have spent the past 3 years speaking to local communities about the climate crisis, and now with the support of Tiburon Mayor Holly Thier, they are working to generate community awareness and backing for this important climate emergency resolution and asking for your support. Now, the Tiburon Town Council is tentatively scheduled to consider the climate emergency resolution at their Wednesday, March 17th meeting. So now Pat, David, and Sana will tell you about the why and how you can help.
I'd like to begin by showing you the 6 main reasons I'm committed to the subject of the climate crisis. And these are my grandchildren. And I really believe for our kids and our grandkids and future generations, we've got to deal with this issue, and we've got to deal with it now. Today, we're in a climate emergency, and we need a whole society mobilization to prevent a climate catastrophe. We're building a movement to get us there, the Climate Mobilization Campaign, which urges local action at all levels of government to pass a climate emergency resolution. Bill Gates, in his new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, says, we need to accomplish something gigantic that we have never done before, and now is the time. The Biden administration is calling for robust and assertive government action and is likely to declare a national climate emergency soon. There's also strong support in Congress to declare a climate emergency, including from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. We are seeing more and more extreme weather events around the world. And in fact, in the last 40 years, there's been a dramatic increase in storms and floods and mudslides, extreme temperatures, droughts, and fires. For example, in Iraq, deadly heat waves reach 127 degrees Fahrenheit. And we all remember San Francisco 2 years ago when the temperature reached 104 degrees. And high temperatures lead to severe drought around the world, like here in Brazil. And in California, we're once again looking at severe drought because we've had so little rain this past winter. At the same time, hurricanes are stronger and more frequent and causing life-threatening flooding, such as when Harvey hit Houston in September of 2017. And we've all seen the headlines from the recent storms in Texas and across the country. And of course, the terrible fires in California. And this is all happening because we are dumping 110 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the atmosphere every 24 hours as if it were an open sewer. And where are these pollutions all coming from? Well, the biggest sources are oil, gas, and coal, and industrial processes. But here in Marin, 52% of our pollution is coming from transportation, and another 34% coming from buildings and our homes. And as Pope Francis reminds us, the gravest of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. The goal of a climate emergency resolution is to collectively and quickly lead the public and all levels of government out of normal mode and into emergency climate mode. And the town of Tiburon is in the process of revising its climate action plan, which was originally passed in 2011. This climate emergency resolution that we are proposing tonight seeks to elevate climate issues to the highest priority in the town council's goal setting and to energize and keep community focus on the Climate Action Plan. This would strengthen the Tiburon Climate Action Plan by assuring community support and involvement. Now, to discuss the value of the Community Emergency Resolution some more, let me introduce David Muller.
All right. Well, thank you, Pat. I'd like to start by pointing out, as Pat just described, we're already well into our climate crisis. And I have to say, for most people, it's really quite overwhelming and leads them to ask, what can my community do? What can I do? Well, a key step that thousands of communities, large and small, all over the world, in the US and here in Marin County have taken is to adopt a climate emergency resolution. In fact, climate emergency resolutions have already been adopted by Novato, Fairfax, San Anselmo, and Corte Madera, and they're being worked on right now in Sausalito and Larkspur. Plus, 9 of the 10 Sonoma County jurisdictions have adopted climate emergency resolutions. So what exactly is a climate emergency resolution, and what's the value of adopting one? Well, to put it succinctly, a climate emergency resolution is a statement of commitment adopted by a governing body such as a town council or a county board of supervisors, a state legislature, or even a national government that puts the government body on record in support of taking emergency action to reverse global warming. At its heart, a climate emergency resolution is a clear statement that 1, climate change is real, 2, there's an urgent need for action, and 3, that the adopting body will consider climate impacts in all of its decisions. A climate emergency resolution is kind of like a statement of resolve. Similar, you might think of like the Declaration of Independence. It's intentionally brief and to the point, and typically only a few pages long. A key purpose of a climate emergency resolution is to be the connector among the many other climate-related documents and efforts that town or city typically is involved with, such as its climate action plan or its general plan, and its participation in county and regional joint climate-related efforts. A climate emergency resolution acts as kind of a lens for making decisions. You can hold it up when making a decision and ask the question, how will this decision affect climate change? Is it consistent with our climate action plan? And are we doing the right thing to support a world we can live in? Climate emergency resolutions typically start with some statements of fact about the reality and impacts of climate change, and then list specific commitments or resolutions the town is making going forward. Now, there are many examples of climate emergency resolutions available to use as models, and Sana and Pat have drawn from these in crafting a draft climate emergency resolution for Tiburon. As our governor said last fall, it's a climate damn emergency. A climate emergency resolution is a way to turn this fact into a powerful tool to help guide our local government in its decision-making. So next, Sana will talk about the draft climate emergency resolution they've created for Tiburon, a little more about its specific features and how you can personally get involved.
Thank you, David. And hello, everyone. And here, by the way, are my top 5 reasons for getting involved with the climate mobilization movement and the effort to get a climate emergency resolution passed here and everywhere. Now, let me start by saying that Tiburon has certainly made progress in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by doing things like buying some electric vehicles for their municipal fleet, installing solar panels at the police station and town hall, and shifting to Marin Clean Energy, MCE's 100% deep green option for all their electricity. And of course, we want to acknowledge the steps that your congregations have made to install solar panels and increase energy efficiency in your buildings, plus all the progress that our fellow citizens have made in shifting to electric cars, putting solar panels on their homes, and buying MCE's deep green. we're all doing more than ever. However, there's so much more to be done and done quickly to get to net zero emissions in time to stop and reverse global warming. As we've all been reading, and scientific reports are now saying that the window of opportunity to act is now down to 9 years. 9 years. And so we really need to accelerate our timetable dramatically. For Tiburon, the Climate Emergency Resolution, or what I might call CER, that we're proposing for the town, for Tiburon, calls on the town council to basically sound the alarm, pull out all the stops, and move full steam ahead to address climate change as the existential crisis that it has become. There. So that we're all on the same page, here are the 5 key action areas that we're proposing for a Tiburon CER. First, declare a climate emergency and publicly recognize that the climate crisis has reached emergency proportions and now requires commensurate emergency speed, scale, and scope to meet the challenge. Second, as Pat and David have said, elevate climate issues to the highest priority in the town's goal setting and decision-making, and using the CER as the lens for viewing all of the town's policies and decisions. Third, aggressively implement Tiburon's updated Climate Action Plan, or CAP, which Pat and David both talked about. The Climate Emergency Resolution can really be a driver for implementation for the town's new Climate Action Plan. And fourth, align Tiburon's Climate Action Plan with Marin County's Climate Action Plan to ensure consistency and stronger impact in areas like electrifying all town buildings and vehicles, building out public EV charging stations throughout the town to encourage more residents to shift to EVs, and adopting higher energy efficiency standards for all new construction and remodels. And then fifth, and so importantly from our standpoint, is engage the whole Tiburon community, you, us, and our fellow citizens, in staying informed about the town's climate-related actions and results, and assuring the town council that the community is behind them. So quite simply, to pass a climate emergency resolution, we need your help. The more the community is involved, the more the town council will feel supported and be likely to take action. So here's how you can help. Email letters of support as individuals or organizational endorsements as congregations to the town council. And this slide shows a partial example of a letter from an individual. It's really easy and simple to do. And we'll provide templates and samples plus details about how, when, and where to send them. Secondly, attend and speak via Zoom at the town council meeting on Wednesday, March 17th. And really, you're only asked to speak or allowed to speak up to 3 minutes. So it's not that challenging. And you can speak about how you personally and your family support the CER. You can check the town's website, as this slide shows, for how to participate in a council meeting. And again, we'll provide sample talking points and more details about how to do this. And third, recruit your family and friends, young and old, to do the same thing. You can send them an email like this one, telling them why it's important to you and how to lend support. And both Pat Goss and I have reached out to our adult children who also live in Tiburon, asking them to involve their friends, their peers, and even their kids, because every generation can be involved and needs to be involved. Now, we'll be following up with all of you after this session with more information. And you can always email me or Pat Goss or Pat Carloni with any questions and suggestions you might have. So we really hope you want to get involved. And now I'd like to bring back Sally Bingham to say more about the important role that faith communities can play in this kind of an effort.
Well, I think thank you, Sana. I think that we have a major role to play because, as I said earlier, if people of faith who are called to love God and love their neighbors are not willing to participate in solutions to climate change, well, we can't expect others to do it. I mean, this is such an important moral and social justice issue. And I just wanted to add one little tidbit, which is that the issue of climate change is not a belief. It's a scientific fact like gravity. So if someone were to ask you, do you believe in climate change? You've got an opening to say, this is science. It's not a belief. It's not like believing that Jesus was the Son of God. This is a scientific fact. And we know from evidence all over the world, and you've seen slides and had some facts given to you by both Pat and Sana. The world is in dire need of the faith community to step up and lead this movement. There isn't really any major cultural movement that's happened in America without the faith community. When you look at civil rights, particularly the abolition of slavery, women's rights, all of these movements had major participation from the faith community. And I think this is one of those crises and one of these cultural changes that has to happen, and that people of faith need to lead this movement. So I hope you'll show up at the town hall with or email. Sana says you can email or show up on Zoom. And I often say that as people of faith, we really wouldn't have a prayer to solve this problem without the science. And so pay attention to the science. The crisis is happening and we need to act quickly. So thanks for listening. And I hope we have moved you to understand this is a moral issue that has tremendous consequences for the whole world. And I hope you'll help us.
All right. Thank you again, Sally. And I want to follow up with what Sally said about the importance of the faith communities leading the movement, is that I want to acknowledge again that we have representatives from all the faith communities in Tiburon, Belvedere. We have Westminster Presbyterian Church. We have the Community Congregational Church. We have St. Hilary's Catholic Church. We have St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. And we have Congregation Kol Shafar. Matter of fact, Rabbi Leiter was supposed to be here as one of the joining us tonight too. And I got a note from her today that she got called in suddenly for her COVID shot. So things like that came up. But I want everyone to know, even if for some of your friends or members from your congregations who wanted to be here but couldn't be here, we have your emails. So we're concluding our program, but we're going to be contacting you by email, sending you important updates and all the helps and instructions that Sana was talking about for submitting letters to the Tiburon Town Council, for speaking at the council meeting if you're able to come. And unless otherwise noted, the resolution is expected again to be presented on Wednesday, March 17th. And we'll be following up with emails if there's any changes to that and reminding you. We also will be sending you a link to the recording of this presentation so you can listen to it again. And in the meantime, contact us with any questions. And if you didn't get the 3 emails, I want you to take down my email. Right now it's pcarlone, P-C-A-R-L-O-N-E, pcarlone @hotmail.com. And you could email me with any questions and I will pass them on to our team. So, now that we've completed our presentation, I want to take some time for our questions. So what we're going to do is, if you have a question, please raise your hand. And if you are able to use the Zoom feature for raising the hand, do so. And I'll call on you, and please unmute yourself so we can hear your question. And please also be considerate of any of other people who may have questions. So, we stay on your question and refrain from making statements so we can give everyone a chance. So who now has a question that they would like to present to our team? and I'll look for anybody who has a hand up. And does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? I see a cat there, Sandra Will. I don't know
I
if
see Marilyn has her hand raised in the screen. Marilyn?
Marilyn?
Yeah. Hey, just a question. Do you have a link there where people can check the agenda to make sure it is on and firm, and what number it might be for the session?
Sandra, can you respond to that? Let's see if she has her,
She's muted.
she's muted. Is Sandra, are you muted?
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry.
You have to unmute-
My
you have
husband's
to
telling me,
unmute-
for once, my husband's telling me to unmute myself. I think there was some link in the slide that we showed, but it will also be in the information that we send out for sure. Thank you, Marilyn. That's a good reminder. And I think Sally had her hand up.
I see Louise Lipsy has her hand up. You like to?
I just want to commend all of you. I think this is fantastic what you're doing. And I also really appreciate the emergency aspect of this. And because it needs to be addressed on so many levels, local, state, federal, is there anything in the proclamation asking people to get involved in bigger ways too? For instance, like someone like myself was very concerned about the plastic pollution, which is a fossil fuel situation. We need to have break free from plastic passed in the Congress, and we need to have people supporting it. And it's not something I think we can take on local levels on every issue that comes up. So is there a way of having something as a part of this to want to take local action, of course, but also have people be aware that we need them to speak out and contact Congress people, senators, and really to be aware that we need help as well beyond the local.
Sandra, do you want to respond to that, or Pat?
Well, I was just going to say, one of our goals here is to kind of, the climate emergency resolution itself would sort of pull together all of the organizations in Marin that are working on this issue. So that's part of it. And then secondly, any issue we want to raise as citizens, the town has a sustainability council right now with 2 members on it. We're hoping that we can add citizen members to that. And then whatever issue is important to us, we can bring up. We're not trying to hold anything back. In fact, we're looking for all the kinds of issues that the community is interested in. And certainly plastics is a huge one.
I see that Sally has her hand up. Sally?
Pat, I was just going to make a suggestion that someone on our presentation team put your email in the chat.
Oh,
because
yeah.
We told it to someone.
I've
but-
actually already done that. Thank you. If you would look in chat, there's a link to the town council website where you can check for agendas as they come live. I put Pat's email in there, and I'm putting Sana's and Patricia's in as well.
And I'm going to add mine.
Okay, and the voice you heard was Tamala. She's been handling the Zoom behind us, so really appreciate it. You really got on it right away, so thank you. So who else has a question? Barbara?
Could somebody just give a brief summary of where Tiburon is with their update of their climate action plan? I mean, what's the timing of it, so that, how does this emergency resolution, how is it going to impact the timing of the climate action plan?
Tama, Sandra, do you want to address that?
No, they're very involved in updating it, and they've hired a consultant, the one who's Christine O'Rourke, who's done a lot of work with all the towns in Marin on their greenhouse gas inventories. And she's now working on the update for the actual climate action plan. And and the time is they're trying to do, I think they're going to do a workshop in April to try to get the community involved in understanding the climate action plan. And what we were hoping and what we're planning on is to get the climate emergency resolution passed beforehand so that it can be kind of a platform and a context, a broader context for the climate action plan. So they're moving ahead. It should be we should be hearing about it in April. I think most of the Tiburon, all the Tiburon residents have been surveyed or been given the opportunity to fill a survey out on the general plan because they're working on that as well. But it's all kind of in the works, and we want this to pass as kind of the driver for all of that. Anybody else want to add something?
Okay, well, this looks like we've pretty much.
You do have
taken
another
care of-
hand.
Oh, yes, David?
Pat, I just wanted to add something. The question, a couple of questions ago about going beyond Tiburon and engaging the community in that. I just want to point out that in the draft that Sana and Pat have prepared, 2 of the resolutions, there are actually 9 resolutions in here. One specifically says the town council commits to engaging the understanding, participation, and collaboration of the full Tiburon community in all actions the town may adopt. It goes on more. And another resolution is the town of Tiburon joins and will advocate for a nationwide call for a regional, national, and international climate emergency mobilization effort at all levels of government to stop and reverse global warming and the ecological and humanitarian crisis threatening our world. So I just wanted to point that out, that the specifics of the resolution, I think addresses exactly that questioner's question of sort of the breadth going beyond just Tiburon.
And Pat and Sana, in the follow-up emails, aren't we going to be sending everybody a draft of the resolution? So you can see all the item, what is itemized in it. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
We can. We don't know whether the town is going to, whether the council and staff might be altering it as we speak.
Yeah.
But we can send out the one that we sent them.
I was thinking that, in addressing our emails and our few minutes of talking before the council, we'll be talking about the resolution that we are presenting. And so good to all have a copy of it. And what they do with it will remain to be seen afterwards. So anybody else have any questions?
I do see 2 raised hands, Mr. Jeff Healy and Mr. Robert McLennan.
I see, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I see Robert. I see Bob and Cullen. Yeah, Rob.
No, Jeff, go first.
I will never take the pulpit away from a minister. You're up, Rob. I'll go after you, please.
Yeah, we have to hear from the minister.
Well, I beg to differ on that, Jeff, but we'll take that offline. 2 quick questions. Forgive me if you shared some of this, but well, first is, yeah, please do pass along whatever resolution you have. And I say that because we have a meeting of what's called the session, our group of elders, next Tuesday, which I understand is the day before the council meeting. And so it would be, we already have good notes, but it'd be nice if we actually had the resolution before us, even if it's a draft, that's fine. And secondly, let's say our elders pass support officially of the church in favor of this. That's the night before. So who do we tell and how, so that could be leveraged at the meeting?
Yeah, the town clerk would be the person to address, but you would CC the council members, and that'll be part of what we'll send out, the information. It's important to send it within. The council has to post its agenda 72 hours before the meeting, and so that's a good window for when to send letters of endorsement or individual letters of support. to the council members and CCing the town clerk or the other way around. It really doesn't make a difference, but we'll send that information out to you. So you won't be too late, but then you're going to have to spring into action.
Well, and should we also notify you all in case somebody speaks at the meeting and can just verbally share?
Yeah, well, we'd love for you all to, members of your all four congregations to speak at the meeting. We really would. And you don't have to speak all 3 minutes. You can speak 1 minute. In fact, one person told us it's better to have, 30 people speak 1 minute than 10 people speaking 10 minutes. So we would really welcome participation at the meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I see Louise again. Yeah, Louise.
I just have a quick, I think this is really important that what Tiburon is doing. And I know it was mentioned that other communities in Marin are working on it. I'm wondering if there's coordination between Tiburon and other cities. And is there, I know San Rafael wasn't mentioned, and as someone who does live in San Rafael, I'm just wondering what, if anything, you are doing with other cities and if people who live in other places can get involved to help to promote this further in Marin.
David, you might want to address that.
Yeah, there is a county-wide organization called the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership, where all the Marin jurisdictions, all 12 of them, have representatives there that are typically staff members. And that's where a lot of the information exchange takes place on issues like climate action plans, climate emergency resolutions, and so on. So there is a cadre there. They have some professional consultants involved in that group as resources. And so there is a fair amount of exchange at the staff level. Similarly, there's a countywide group for elected officials, the Marin Council of Mayors and Council Members, where elected officials, typically 2 from each jurisdiction, together and talk about stuff that they have in common. And there's a climate committee in MCCMC as well. So they focus on this kind of stuff. So there is a fair amount of exchange among city staff members and electeds. And also there are a number of advocacy groups, such as the one that Sana and I are in. And there's actually an advocacy group here in Marin County that focuses specifically on climate emergency resolutions. Sana participates in that. I do, many other people. And so there's a good information exchange there also that spills over from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Following up on that, and I want to get back to Jeff because I apologize, Jeff, for overlooking you. Marilyn, why don't you put your, Marilyn Price heads up the advocacy group for organizing climate emergency resolutions. And you can always contact Marilyn or Afki, Santa, Pat, or myself, or David. We're all connected with Marilyn about what's going on in the communications between different communities regarding their climate emergency resolutions. Now, Jeff, I apologize for overlooking you, and you can take the next 20 minutes if you have to, and if people have to leave, I'll stay here and listen to you, make sure that you're heard. I just want you to know that.
Pat, thanks so much. And what a pleasure to be part of this group. I'm just flattered to be among, be standing on the shoulders of giants. Couple things come to mind. I'll be real quick. One is, and I'm not a scientist, I'm an investor and the like, but I've heard a lot of cortisol, a lot of the the bad stuff. And I think to get the message across, we also need the oxytocin. We need the good stuff. So do we have a plan on aggregating some of the stories of things that we are personally doing to help? So it's not just the naysayers. Naysaying is very important, but it's also giving people hope that through the moral compass that we supply, that we can get people to do good stuff. One of my things, I'll be real quick, and Rob knows this as a fact, I will not drive my car less than 4 miles. I walk anything less than 4 miles. It's things like that I think are pretty cool to share. And I give my time back.
Did anybody want to respond to that? I want to say something. I never get a chance to say this. This is my second year now. I started January 1st, 2020. I no longer use paper towels. I use old dish towels that we use as rags, like my mom used. We always use rags, and no longer plastic wrap. There's a nice, I use wax paper. There's a brown wax paper now. It's not the refined stuff. And I even have the beeswax covered material to put over things when I freeze them. So getting away from plastic is really, really hard. But there are new things coming out now, products to help us move away from that. So just want to put my plug in. Anybody wants to talk to me about it, you can email me. Anybody else have anything that they want?
I want to just comment that one of our ideas here is that everybody in the town, so the kids in the schools, the people in the churches, the people in the businesses and all, would know everything that's going on about climate. So we would all know what percentages of us have EVs, how many solar array panels are going on this month, but a huge communication positive effort that it really includes all the generations. And that's really the idea behind the emergency part of it, that we really elevate it and look at things that need to be done in this town. One of the things that I think of is we live in a condominium, and behind us are all of the apartments up on the hill in Tiburon. And until we have public EV charging stations, those people aren't going to own electric vehicles. So we could put all of this kind of thing into our use our emergency resolution to bring positive change to the town. That's the whole idea of this. All right. All right.
Anybody else want to add anything before we kind of wind up, have supper?
Okay.
Well, this has really been enlightening. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll stay together and look for your emails coming out from us for the details of how you can follow up with letters and talks before the city council. Again, we right now we're thinking it's going to be Wednesday, March 17th for the Tiburon Council meeting. And I want to point out that in working on this with Pat and Sana, we had one night when we actually got together on Zoom with Mayor Holly Thayer, and she is really excited about us getting involved, and we've got her full support for bringing this resolution before the town council. So this is a combined effort of a lot of people who want this to happen. So welcome. Thank you again for your support, and again a special thanks to Sally Bingham for joining us tonight and encouraging us to stay involved as faith communities. So thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. This does conclude our meeting for the certified climate emergency resolution for Tiburon. Yes, I learned a lot about it during the meeting. Thank you very much. Goodbye.